If you've clicked on this video, then I'm gonna assume that you might be planning a trip to Taiwan. Well, you've made the right choice and you've come to the right place, because I just spent some time in Taiwan and I have lots of thoughts, tips, and tricks to share for how to make your Taiwan adventure as fantastic as possible. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Hawkins, and on this channel, I share my adventures as a traveling singer-songwriter. I have lots to share, so I've split this video up into different categories, starting with geography and transportation. Taiwan is an island and it's broken up into 4 main regions: North, Central, South, and East. Taipei is the capital and it's a great jumping off point for your trip. You can fly straight into Taipei Airport, which is located in the north of Taiwan. Taipei is a very walkable city and it has a fantastic metro system. The metro system in Taipei is called the MRT, that stands for Mass Regional Transit, and you can use it to get in from the airport when you first arrive. The first thing you want to do when you land in Taiwan is make sure that you get an Easy Card. Easy Cards are the metro cards in Taiwan, and they can be used on all sorts of transit, from the metro to the buses and even trains that go outside of the capital city of Taipei. You can both buy and top up your Easy Card at metro stations as well as many different convenience stores. In addition to the metro system, you do of course also have Uber, which is pretty affordable in Taiwan and definitely very convenient. Taiwan generally has a very warm climate, but the thing you need to look out for is rain. It rains a lot in Taiwan, so that means make sure to bring your umbrella, buy a poncho, whatever you need to do to stay dry, or at least as dry as possible. Now that we have our bearings, let's move on to general culture in Taiwan. The official language in Taiwan is Mandarin. However, English is very widely used. You will definitely see signs written in both Mandarin and English. However, often at restaurants, menus will be only written in Mandarin. So if you're like me and you can really only say hello and thank you in Mandarin, what you want to do is download the Google Translate app. You'll be able to use their camera function, which is really handy. You can take a picture of a menu and it'll automatically translate everything on the page. Now, obviously, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it's much better than trying to read a language that you don't speak at all. Taiwan felt very safe to me as a female traveler. I thought that all of the local Taiwanese people that I met were super friendly, and the country, generally speaking, is just very inclusive. In fact, it was the first country in Asia to legalize gay marriage in 2019. In terms of budgeting, I found Taiwan to be relatively affordable. It's definitely cheaper than, say, South Korea or Japan. However, it's also definitely more expensive than Southeast Asian countries like Thailand or Vietnam. If you're out in a big city like Taipei, you'll notice quite a few social rules, we'll say, that everyone seems to know and follow. So for instance, they have the same escalator rule that we have in the US. You know, if you're standing still, stay to the right. If you're passing people, go on the left. But it's definitely more followed and respected in Taiwan than it is in the US. I think the metro is where these social rules are the most obvious. For instance, if you're on a subway car, it is going to be pretty much silent. People really don't talk to their neighbors and they keep this kind of respectful quiet as you're commuting to your destination. Similarly, when you're waiting on the station platform, there are lines that show you where to stand, and people really do wait in a line before they board their train. If you're coming from the US, you'll be happy to hear that the outlets in Taiwan are the same as in America, so you won't need an adapter, but of course, if you're coming from Europe, for example, you will. It's always a good idea to have some tissue on you if you're planning on using a public restroom in Taiwan. Some of them do have toilet paper, but a lot of them don't. And if they do have toilet paper, it's not in the individual stall like we have in the US. It'll often be by the door to the bathroom, so you have to remember to grab some on your way in. If you're looking for a taste of local life in Taiwan, I really recommend checking out a creative park. Creative parks are essentially warehouses or factories that have been converted into shops and cafes and restaurants and event spaces. They're really cool and they seem to be a really important part of the local culture in Taiwan. Before I wrap up this category, I want to share my favorite thing that I did in Taiwan, which was collect stamps. At different metro stations and tourist sites all across the country, there are free stamp stations where people can bring little booklets, or in my case, my travel journal, and collect stamps from everywhere you go in the country. I just thought it was such a cool incentive, and as far as I know, the only other country that does something like that is Japan, so it feels very unique and it made my time in Taiwan extra special. Let's move on to our next category, which is sightseeing. While I did spend most of my time in the capital city of Taipei, I did do a big day trip, which really should have been 2 day trips, but I squeezed them both into one day. I visited Shifen and Joffen. I'll make sure to link the vlog from that day so you can see all of the chaos and things that went wrong, as well as the things that went so right. Both of these places are so worth visiting. I do, in retrospect, recommend either splitting them up into 2 different day trips or going on a group tour where you're not in charge of navigating the trains and buses. All that said, it was so worth it. Shifen is a beautiful town that has a train street similar to the one in Hanoi in Vietnam, if you've heard of that one. There are shops and places to eat and a beautiful waterfall to visit. Joffen is very famous. It is rumored to be the town that the movie Spirited Away was based on. It's full of tiny winding streets and beautiful lanterns and yummy food and tea houses. I really would have loved to spend more time there, so I will definitely visit again when I come back to Taiwan. In Taipei City itself, you of course have to make sure you visit Taipei 101. When it was built, this was the tallest building in the world, and while it has since been surpassed by newer, taller buildings, it's still absolutely worth visiting. Unfortunately, the weather when I went was pretty bad, so I did not get to go to the observation deck and see the view, but I've heard if it's a clear day, it's absolutely incredible, so that's another thing for my list when I go back next time. Chiang Kai-shek Memorial Hall is an iconic, very large building. There's also a museum inside where you can get some stamps, and it's really worth it to walk the grounds and see the National Concert Hall. Everything there is just really, really beautiful. I think it's fair to say that the most famous temple in Taipei is Longshan Temple. It's beautiful, and it's very much a mix of a tourist site and a place where local people really do go to pray. It's really worth seeing. You may have seen pictures of the iconic Rainbow Taipei Street. That is in Ximending Walking District, which is a must. It is definitely on the more chaotic, crowded side as far as neighborhoods go in Taipei, but it is beautiful and there's so much going on, including some very good food, which we'll talk about in a minute. Speaking of places to walk around, you're gonna want to visit Dihua Street. It is the oldest street in Taipei and it has some really beautiful architecture. When I went, it was nighttime, but I do wish I had gone earlier in the day, so I would plan with that in mind. The last category that I have to cover is, of course, food and drink. The food in Taiwan is so good. Even with as many people around the world that know how fantastic Taiwanese food is, I still think it's underrated because it is even better than people told me. The night markets in Taipei are absolutely iconic. I've heard that they're all fantastic. There isn't just one main one that you need to visit. The one that I went to was called Ningxia Night Market, and I got so much great food for very, very affordable prices. In fact, I think each thing I ordered at the night market was under $3. While prices might be a little bit higher in restaurants, night markets are where you're gonna find the cheapest food in Taiwan, so I definitely recommend checking out a few of them if you have the time, but make sure to have cash on you because a lot of the night markets will not have stands that can take card. Taiwan doesn't really have very much of a drinking culture. You can find bars if you're looking for them, however, they are vastly outnumbered by boba places. One of the most globally famous restaurants in Taiwan is Din Tai Fung, which is very well known for their soup dumplings. I actually went to their location that is inside Taipei 101, which was very, very cool, and I highly recommend it. However, expect to wait a long time for a table. There is so much fantastic food in Taiwan. I know I only scratched the surface, but if I'm gonna give just 4 recommendations, this is what you have to try. The first is beef noodle soup. It's a classic Taiwanese dish and it's great comfort food. It's always delicious. Next is Taiwanese popcorn chicken, which is the thing I was most excited to try in the country, and it did not disappoint. I had it several times. The next one might not look the most appealing, but you definitely have to try an oyster omelet. I did not know what I was getting myself into with this one, and it was really, really good. And lastly, you of course cannot come to the birthplace of bubble tea without getting some boba. Honestly, I am not the biggest fan of boba, but I knew I had to try it when I was in Taiwan, and I definitely had the best boba I have ever had in Taipei. With that, we've come to the end of my list. I say the end of my list, but there are so many more things I learned in Taiwan, so make sure to check out all of the vlogs from my time in Taiwan. I'll make sure to link them in the video description, but you can of course find them all on my channel as well. As always, the intro song in my videos is my original song, Foreign Voice. You can find it wherever you get music online or linked in the video description. Please make sure you're following me on Spotify and Instagram. I've made sure to link everything in the video description. I will be back next week with a new video from a new country, so feel free to leave your guesses in the comments as to where you think I'm headed next. But for now, I'll say thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.
I'm working on my foreign